Hey there, YouTube. Artichoke Dip here again. And, well, this is the point of the video for Against Darkness, as I promised. We're going to get into the terrain, what I use and everything. And, well, something that was explained to me a long time ago. And that was, sometimes to teach somebody something, you got to walk them through the woods. And in this video, that's what we're going to do. We're going to walk through the forest of Artichoke Dip's terrain pieces and what he will be using. And then we'll get into the storyline. Then we'll get into rolling some dice. All right. So let's take a look at the table and see what we have to work with here. All right. My setup that I have here, and this is what I use. So these trees right here, I actually made myself. And I have two different sizes for two different reasons, and I got 4 of each. The larger of the trees are going to represent heavy forest areas like that where movement will be restricted, and they are larger trees, obviously for heavy forest. And they're very cool. You know, one thing I can tell you is there's nothing better than the encounter in a forest with real trees on your board. And then of course I got these smaller ones that I made that I'm using, and these right here represent light forest and normal movement for my characters as they move across the board. I'll get more into that in a minute because that's something that I add into my game and game mechanics, how I do it, and basically just adopted from other RPGs that I've played throughout the time, out years, I guess I should say. All right, second I have here, we got some fancy dancy corner pieces. We go into a dungeness area. We got some dilapidated areas like this. We run into any rundown areas. And of course, I have a lot of dungeon walls. 2 different colors here to use and choose from. And of course, one other thing that I really do like is this set right here. I picked this up. This is a terrain set. That's all it is. But the nice thing is it is completely 100%. Get it open. I apologize for the camera angle. Stupid box. It's got some cool art on the inside of it. And it's got a fold-out map in here for your larger RPGs, and some tokens that go along with it that I don't use because I got 3D ones, so those just stay in there. Matter of fact, I don't even use the map. I do sometimes. It's just weird. What I'm really after is here, these. And these tiles are awesome because they're reversible. You got forest on one side, you got dungeon floor on the other. And not even only for my RPGs, for my board games that I play, my D&D board games that I have, they're also compatible with those, so you can expand dungeons as well. But, I know that was a lot to say. These will be the terrain tiles that I'll be using, and I lay down, especially when I go into dungeness areas, stuff like that. It works out very well. And then I can keep a far more well-controlled, organized terrain structure overall on the board rather than what I have dealt with in the past. Okay, so let's get into the next set that we will be using. That will be this right here, the Warlock set. This is also another dungeness area. As you can tell, yeah, dungeons are nice. It's for Against Darkness. There's going to be a lot of dungeness areas, but they're not all going to be dungeness. But this is a terrain set that I will be using for this game setup as well. This is a very cool set. I do enjoy it. And then, of course, last but not least, this is my terrain crate that I have put together, collecting different terrain pieces over the years, and built it into what I have here. And this is my terrain crate. Okay, so in here, I can set up a board any way that I want. I have plenty, I mean, like right here, these little wooden pieces, I can set up taverns, or if you want to set up like inside of a stronghold or barracks or something like that, I have plenty of features I can do with that. Anyway, just to give you an idea in the scope of how in depth I get into with my games. So movement for me is a huge part of RPGs. Time, space, movement is huge for me, and this helps accommodate all of that. So with that being said, let's take a gander at the game and the setting from there on out. Okay, so let's get into this setting. This setting is, the way I put it and wrote it and came up with the idea, is also used with the mechanics of the game in a way that when I decide I've had enough game sessions and it's time to end the game, I can end the game on a conclusion, walk away with the satisfaction of actually completing the game rather than having something that's just going to continuously, perpetually run. I might want a more advanced game system in order to do that, where you have more options built into it. Hence, for my first video talking about the complexity of the game systems. But with this, I want something light and fun, and I want to tumble dice and move some minis and make some cool terrain. So with that, I decided to go totally 100% from the bottom up and just use what I had in my library and kind of challenge myself to build something with For Against Darkness that I incorporate for something else out there that was completely unrelated. And that was this right here, the Valmirian Chronicles. And this is actually written for 5th edition. It's literally a universal bland campaign setting, which is a good thing because it just gives you the basic overall foundation, and you build everything you want and put it in there that you want to how you foresee creating it. This just gives you the support and reference to be able to continuously move that ahead. Works great for solo. Now, in this setting, something piqued my imagination, I guess we could say. Ran across my brain in a certain way, and that was called the Withering. And reading about the Withering, it was this harsh, dry, windswept land that was just completely barren of all life, and scattered amongst it were ruins and all of that. All of the hallmarks of a good adventure that I wanted to use. So I pulled that, and I wanted to do something with a cleric. But rather than just constantly the cleric only being there as the platoon medic, handing out healing, and other than that, being in the background, unless there's a zombie or a ghoul or something that had to be, dealt with, I wanted the cleric to have a more forward role in all of this, which gave me an idea, and I thought about Knights Templar. And how do I take the Knights Templar and use that in a fantasy setting with For Against Darkness, incorporating the Withering? And this is what I came up with. In the center of the Withering, and they call it the Withering because it's an area devoid of life. This once was a sprawling metropolis city of a band of very powerful and evil wizards. They got to the point that they felt as if they were so powerful they could dismantle the fabric of reality and put it back together in the way that they seen it should be made. And the angry god stepped in and said, you ain't doing that. Here's a meteor swarm. And the only thing left standing was the temple built to this god. And it remains standing. Now, in this area at night, it's the only light that can be seen. Hence, on the horizon that the characters are constantly moving towards. So they're traveling at night towards their destination through the wilderness rather than the day, because they can't see it in the day. It's just a barren wasteland. Everywhere they look is just nothing. And as they move across this terrain, I have a randomized table that I put in that's going to change the terrain up. It's going to give me the ability to be able to
have a lot of game sessions that I want in a miniature fashion style with my 3D terrain, but also moving a story narrative ahead through small adventures. And then when I decide I've had enough for Against Darkness, I can go to the final stage, which is making it to the temple and facing the boss, the end encounter, and having that closure of the narrative of the story. And that is the fun part of it. That's what I love about the simplicity of For Against Darkness and pulling on other resources, how we're going to get into a really, really cool game. Now, it goes without saying, because this place was decimated, these were evil, evil magic users, which means there was a lot of abominations and corrupt life forms that they made. And there's going to be a lot of horrible, evil things that will also be lurking around. Because sprawled across this landscape, not only are there going to be areas of dead forests and ruins and dilapidated areas, but there's also going to be small dungeonous areas that are going to be riddled throughout the landscape. I limit the dungeon areas up to 6-room dungeons at a time. I do this for a reason. A, it gives me the ability to really be able to design more unique, elaborate floor layouts with my terrain, but also you're not locked into the endless grind of a dungeon crawl. You're still doing wilderness movement, moving the story narrative forward, and pulling on the other For Against Darkness resources that are in there. I can also build new NPCs and characters, mentors, and other things to bring into the game to really blow it up as big as I want to before I decide to pull the plug on it. All right, my friends, let's jump on into it and let's get into the dice rolling and get into the gaming part and then in the next video. Until then, this is Artichoke Dip signing off.